7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Progress toward these noble goals is persistently threatened by the conflict now engulfing the world. It commands our whole attention, absorbs our very beings. We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method. Unhappily, the danger it poses promises to be of indefinite duration. To meet it successfully, there is call for
There is nothing wrong with your screen. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling the messaging in this transmission. We will tell you the topics you may speak about. We will remove any speech we deem unfit. We will identify and protect you from all that is evil. You need only put your full trust in us. We are the government, and we are here to help.
Hey, good afternoon, George. Welcome to episode 6.
How we doing today, Jack?
I'm doing dandy, sir. Welcome to our viewers. Everyone get ready. We're getting ready to enter the tank. You ready, Georgie?
It is time.
It is time. Here we go. Hey, George. One of the things I want to talk to you about is the Trump Facebook ban and the Oversight Committee. And really, it has nothing to do with Trump in the sense that it has so much more to do with propaganda and censorship. And so let's leave Trump out of this whole thing, although he's integral to what happened, but it's really not the point of this. Here's the bottom line. The committee, the Oversight Committee, they said that a permanent ban on Trump really wasn't that solid because Facebook had no clear measurement tools in place, and that they need to reconsider their decision on a permanent ban in about 6 months from now. And they need to put some best practices in place.
For the viewers' sake, though, Jack, so the Oversight Committee, is that a Facebook committee?
So it's a third-party committee that was commissioned by Facebook to review decisions that they make and to either support those decisions or provide feedback, right? And it is touted as being, highly independent for the sake of ensuring that things are done correctly and Facebook's not going to overstep their bounds.
So is it a government committee?
It is not a government committee. It is, a group of 20 individuals, and I'll post a link to all those individuals. But there are 20 individuals. So, with that said, their second statement, which is the statement where they said that Trump should have been banned when he did, as he posed an immediate threat. So just to digress, on one hand, they're saying, hey, you did the wrong thing by banning him permanently because your rules aren't clear and you need to look at this again in 6 months. But they said you did the right thing by banning him at the beginning as he posed an immediate threat. So here's my thought on this and where it falls in line with censorship and with propaganda. By telling Facebook that they need to refine their guidelines before issuing a permanent ban, that serves to legitimize the board in the eyes of the public as being fair and impartial. Now, by doing that, they create the impression that their next statement must also be fair and impartial. The statement that says that the initial decision to ban Trump was the right call. Okay, and that's where the uh, the propaganda comes into play. Now, I made that deduction considering the following facts. Um, there's evidence that Trump suspected something and that he wanted 10,000 troops on January the 6th, but Congress refused. Uh, Another thing that I think about, how is it that you and I can find evidence of Antifa scaling the walls, breaking windows, and having the crowd pull them back? And then how do we view this case? And more importantly, how do they view that case and say that he made statements that you needed to take him down right away? When you compare that to Maxine Waters and others, where they have overtly and aggressively had calls to actions. So those are the three things that I'm using to make a comparison with. And then last but not least, which is very important, Tori Richards of the Washington Examiner, she published an article, and 15 of the 20 members of the Facebook Oversight Board, they have ties to George Soros. So in the end, I see this as further
Everyone
evidence.
has ties to George Soros.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing how many people have ties to George Soros. But I mean, dude, when you look at this this oversight committee, trying to give them validation, like trying to, who are they, right? Like, so like this is kind of like the fact checker thing, right? Like they hire independent fact checkers, but they're really just a bunch of asshats who like sit around. These are not like, top dog journalist, investigative reporter type. These are people who fumble around on the internet and try and find things to make a case. I mean, even the mighty Politico in the fact check world with their Pulitzer Prizes or whatever garbage got awarded to them. That's all they. I mean, we made the case on that as to what they do, right? They
Right.
half of the stuff that they fact check isn't even fact check worthy. I mean, that whole thing on the Donald Trump with the 10,000 troops, like the Secretary of Defense clearly said that they had the conversation, but they put this out there anyway because they just wanted to have the headline of saying false, and they put it out there, added in this Nancy Pelosi tweet because some random dude on Twitter posted that Nancy Pelosi stopped it, instead of just saying it got shot down at the Capitol level. But like, and then they go on to talk about it like the president has the authority to do that, which he doesn't in Washington, D.C. Politico knows that. They know what the context of the conversation that they put in their own, like that was a fact check that you didn't even have to leave their article to go fact check and realize it was BS. It's the same thing as this oversight committee. They just hire a bunch of guys who are going to do whatever they want and then paint the picture that, like, who cares what 20 schmoes think about Facebook? Facebook's going to make up whatever random policy they want to make up. If the oversight committee likes it, it does. If they don't like it, they'll hire one that does. It's like, this is all charades and shit show. There's nothing.
Yep.
There's nothing real here. There's nothing real. And we showed what happened at the Capitol. We showed. Like, it's undeniable video evidence that the Trump supporters were stopping people from breaking and doing damage to the Capitol. Now, how the doors got open, I have no idea. I would love to see footage. Someone must have been filming that. Those doors weren't broken into. They were opened. Right. So it's like, who opened them? And why were there no one there to stop them from opening them? It's like... plenty of people rushed into that building. No real damage was done inside the building. Nobody was really hurt except the one person who was shot by a police officer, or if it was Secret Service, I don't remember how that panned out. But that's the only person that was seriously injured. And then there was the fake story about the guy getting hit with the
fire extinguisher or something.
Fire extinguisher, who did not get hit with a fire extinguisher. So it turns out, still people walk around talking about this guy, this phantom guy who got hit with this phantom police officer who got hit with a fire extinguisher. The guy died 2 days later. No evidence of blunt force trauma whatsoever. He just died of a stroke. And they're starting with they're keeping it, but no one really stops the story of the fire extinguisher, and that's how it works, right? Once you get that out there, everyone starts talking about it, and then when you find out that's not the case, you put that in a small little piece in the corner of your website that nobody can see, and then everybody keeps walking around talking about fire extinguishers. In the end, there was a very complicated situation going on over there. Yes, there were definitely Trump supporters who ran in the doors once they were open. No, there were definitely not Trump supporters breaking windows and doing all that stuff. And it was clear. You can hear them clearly yelling at the people who were doing it, calling them Antifa, screaming that Antifa's in the crowd. And you see them in there. We made the case with the uniform. That you got a sea of people wearing red, white, and blue. And then you got these random dudes who are breaking shit, all wearing black with black masks and billy clubs and shield. Like, what is that? They don't even look like they're like they didn't even take the time to try and dress like a MAGA supporter. So and they all know this. The Capitol riots are now going to be used, and we'll cover it later in a rant for a narrative to go after people, and it's now it's all about they're trying to condition your head for the extremist, for the white supremacist, and then they're going to tell you what an extremist and a white supremacist is. And what that is it's any political opposition to the current administration. That's right. What that is.
Well, you hear it time and time again. And, look, so my point of bringing this whole thing up really is the fact that, they're being very sly in terms of, hiring this third-party committee. The third-party committee condemns them on Part A to, increase their validity. And then in Part B, slides it in on how they did such a good job and how they were in the right. It's ridiculous, but for people that are not, people are going to follow what they want to follow and hear what they want to hear. And they've just told them what they want to hear. Hey, Facebook wasn't in the right by doing this, but they were definitely in the right by doing that, right? And people will go no further than that. Hey, George, wanted to talk to you a little bit about some CDC data. I took a look at total deaths from all causes for 2020. That's finally out, and there's no lag left anymore in it. And so when I took a look at the numbers and I went to the National Academy of Sciences website for some comparisons and for some data, if we review the total deaths from past years, you could see that 2020 was an average year. In fact, it was better than the increase in total deaths we had from 2014-15 season or the 2016-17 season, where they had a lot of deaths that were attributed to the flu, 61,000 in that year, when there's a normal 32,000. That's the average. But what's interesting is that every year since 2014, and that's as far back as I went, every year there's been an increase. The average increase is 1.75%. 2020 had an increase of 2%. But if you look back to 2015, they had a 3.8% increase. Now, one of the reasons that's attributed to this increase year over year is that you have, baby boomers. And so you had this large segment of the population is now coming to the end of their lifetime. What the National Academy of Sciences also brought out was that during the COVID season, there was 4.41 million years of life that were lost. And the way that works is they take the average lifespan of a human being and then they take the average age of the person that passed away due to COVID or COVID complications, and they, tally up the entire amount of years of life that were lost. So if you look at that 4.4 million years of life, if you look at a bad flu year like 2017, they state that it was 13.2 million years of life from excess death. A little hard to wrap your head around. I'm making some speculation that, perhaps with everybody staying home, maybe there was far fewer accidents and so forth, and that's what attributed to the, only the older folks, because that's who we lost were the older folks, and whereas 2017 it was spread out much more. So when you look at all of this data, what I'm seeing here is I'm not seeing enough evidence that we actually had a pandemic to the level that was really broadcast. And then when we consider some of the evidence that we had from CNN with one of their directors talking about how they used it to bolster their ratings, so we look at that component of it. it to me, it just really it just feels as if uh, it's been overdone, overplayed, and the sad
Well,
part
look,
about it is, go
it's
ahead.
been overplayed, right?
Yeah,
When you look at the way this whole thing goes, and I will tell people this, in the end, when something happens, whether doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if it's a left issue or right issue, although the left really are the only ones who engage in this kind of craziness. When they all get behind a message and you're not allowed to question that message, immediately you should be questioning the shit out of that message.
yeah,
The truth doesn't require silencing. So if someone is on the side of truth, you don't have to silence. There's no reason to silence people who are saying something different because you have the truth on your side. No one is dumb enough. Well, correction. You shouldn't be dumb enough to allow someone to tell you that they're not going to let somebody give an opinion on a topic because they feel that it's damaging. The truth isn't damaged by falsity. Okay, it's not, because you've got the truth.
right,
You can debunk the falsity. You don't
right,
need to silence it. When you see big tech unified going after somebody who's saying something, as they did in this case with those two doctors that came out, and they were both making clear statements. They weren't ridiculous doctors. No one even tried to accuse them of it. They just banned them from every source of internet media in the world. They exist on Rumble, I believe, right now. Their video, but they came
okay,
out and they were telling people straight out, look, we're being told to mark deaths as COVID. Why am I being pressured to mark deaths as COVID? Like, if a medical professional comes out who's currently working in a hospital dealing with COVID, saying that this is true, and you have no reason to debunk him, and he gets silenced, your antennas need to go up. You
right.
cannot keep walking around in the zombie stupor of information that you're living in. At some point, your antennas need to go up. Those first, I always screw this up, Jack. What's the name of that group of doctors?
Frontline doctors.
Frontline doctors. So they come out, they made the terrible mistake of bringing this Nigerian lady who ended up going, becoming the star of the show. And then the media immediately pounced on this woman and tried to discredit everybody in this project because this woman was making silly claims. And she was making, so she was calling hydroxychloroquine a cure. It's not a cure. And it's one thing if a layman makes that mistake. It's another thing if a medical professional makes that mistake. That's a big difference between the two. But she was saying there's a cure. Now, I don't know if it was an English gap or something like that, but clearly it's not a cure. It's a preventative measure that has a high rate of success. And there's a difference between that and a cure. But no one else on the entire team, they did a 3-hour presentation. It wasn't just that podium drop that they did in front of I don't know where they were, in front of the Capitol or something. But it wasn't just that little thing they did. They did a huge presentation explaining exactly how COVID works, why hydroxychloroquine is able to be effective, what the numbers in countries that are using hydroxychloroquine showed, the fact that India had stopped a major outbreak simply by using it. Like all of this data was real. They were not making this data up. And yet these people were not only were they taken off YouTube, immediately silenced on Twitter, Facebook, any mention of their video that would be shared by anyone would be banned.
Lawsuits,
and for them, the next day they shut down their website.
right?
And then you got to listen to these people tell you that it's friggin' their DNS server. It's like, stop it. It just happened to go down the day after they get banned on every form of internet humanly possible.
Right.
It's like, come on. Like immediately, people have to start gaining on to this. If you're the dumbass that's living your life thinking, thank you, Google, for protecting me from that information. If you're that stupid, there is no saving you. There is no saving you. You're done at that point. You're done.
Hey, George, I'm opening up the VIP video chat line, and we'll take a call. How's that sound?
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Who do we got this week?
I don't know. I'm going to have to answer it and find out. It's first come, first serve. They line up, and whoever dialed in first, if they still hang while I do it, they got me. It's one call per show.
Outstanding. So, let's see who it is.
All right, let me connect this thing up. Connecting now. Boom. Oh, hey there, Cammie. How are you? Hey.
Let's talk about Joe and the Joe we know, right?
Well, I really don't want to talk about Joe. Let's talk about one of your passions. I'm still curious. How did you help get marijuana legalized?
We organized, we mobilized, we texted people, we emailed, we called people till they were sick of us, but we knew they'd get over it. So, right?
Well, one thing seems to have changed since the government stepped in. I think the potency has gone way, way up.
But it's okay.
Well, speaking of potency, let me ask you something else. Have you ever tripped on acid?
Not today, but I have before, and I'm sure I will again.
Well, I hope you're not in charge of the nuclear codes when you do.
Yeah, brother, me too.
Well, with that said, I got to go. But it's always a pleasure chatting with you, Kamala.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Hey, George, on a continuing topic, I want to share with you something I found out with regard to election fraud. And it has to do with nonprofit organizations and their impact, the way they go about doing things. And I want to focus on one in particular and its impact on two different states. So Zuckerberg gave $30 million to the Center for Tech and Civic Life. If you go to the Center for Tech and Civic Life's website, you'll see that it's the who's who of far left instigators. And I mean far, far left instigators. Now, that really does come into play. And the reason it does is, let's take...
Did you think Zuckerberg was a conservative?
No. But here's why it comes into play. Is because in order for a nonprofit to get behind an election and try and influence the election in terms of voter turnout, right, and ballot harvesting and things along those lines, they have to be able to prove that they're nonpartisan, and they have to distribute their money a little bit. So they did distribute their money, but they're highly partisan. How that'll play out, I'm not quite sure. But to show you the impact they had in Georgia, right? They gave grants to 9 of the 10 counties with the greatest Democratic shifts in the 2020 presidential election. 9 of those counties that were granted that money averaged 13.7% in terms of a shift blueward. There were 2 counties, Cobb and Gwinnett. They were in the 4 counties that delivered Biden the most votes. When you look at Wisconsin, it gets even a little bit darker in that right now they're investigating the same situation, and they've uncovered ballots that were brought about by harvesting. However, harvesting of ballots is illegal in Wisconsin. There were 5 major counties that participated in this. Each one was given about $1 million, and they found that the government officials were the ones enabling this ballot harvesting. Again, it's illegal in Wisconsin. They've also found that the CTCL, which again, the tech center, the nonprofit, they set up and managed voting facilities to a very large degree in Wisconsin. So you have 2 prime incidents where you have nonprofits that are operating either on the fringe or totally going against the laws in the case of Wisconsin, and impacting our ability to have confidence in our electoral process. So I just want to share with you those 2 updates. I know it's something you and I talk about quite a bit. Anything that you can add to that, things that you found recently?
In the end, when it comes to these types of situations, I think the old saying on the street, it's only illegal if you get caught, right? So if there's no one there willing to catch you, it's the same thing as the secretaries of state changing election laws unilaterally without going through legislation. Clearly illegal by every standard. No one even argues the case that it's legal, but nothing, like it did nothing to change the fact that they did it. So like they're perfectly capable of doing it. The legislature is meaningless in those states. And I think that's what we learned from the election, was that Pennsylvania's legislature, Atlanta's legislature, Wisconsin and Michigan, they're useless. They're there as a showpiece, because whenever it's necessary to jump over them, they jump over them. So if there's private organizations out there doing all this nonsense, ballot harvesting is ridiculous anyway. It should be illegal everywhere. The idea that they're saying, the notion that it's so difficult and so challenging to drive over to a local polling place and pull a lever is just disturbing to me. I mean, it's just, how insulting is that? And I have these arguments on social media all the time, and I always pin them down to one thing. I just had one recently, and they're trying to explain to me how the voting law changes in Georgia were oppressive, and I just drill them down to make them say, who are they oppressive to? Oh, marginalized and poor people. That's not a real response. Who are they oppressive to? All kinds of people are marginalized and poor. Who exactly are we talking about that's incapable, that is too incompetent to get an ID? And then I say it for him. You mean black people? You mean Latino people? This is what you mean. This is what your pompous white ass means. But you, or not even white. As a matter of fact, these guys, I believe, are Indian. Okay, but like the point is, they don't want to say it. They don't want. To this day, they haven't said it. They kept coming a specific set of people. They said to me, marginalized and poor people. I'm like, those are terms like fair share and comprehensive. They mean nothing. They mean nothing. And in the end, when they throw that kind of stuff around, you've got to, and this is how you have to treat them. You got to get them down to what they're really saying. Don't let them talk in this word salad garbage because they're just regurgitating what they heard.
Right.
They're regurgitating what they heard, and because these are the words and these are the terms that all these articles use, all these bloggers use, all these lefto psychos use. Right? When they want to raise your taxes, they're like, well, we just want everyone to pay their fair share. What does that mean? What's fair share? Like what's unfair? Right? What's unfair? So it's not a matter of, it's not a matter of trying to debate them on merits. It's a matter of uncoding and forcing them to say what they mean. Because when it comes out clean, they realize how ridiculous and racist it sounds. Like they immediately, they won't do it. And they'll end the conversation with you and they'll leave. And that's when you take a knee, put one hand up to the sky. You got this one, baby. You got this one.
Like Geraldo Rivera throwing a piece of paper the other night.
Oh, yeah. He had that fight on the. I saw a clip of it. What was he on? The Hannity show or something? Him and
like
Bongino?
that. He got all upset and threw a piece of paper at him and called him a punk. But
whatever.
The fact of the matter is that, you said something a minute ago about paying fair share. And I remember in an interview one time, I forgot who was talking to Al Sharpton, who was talking about how people, the 1% need to pay more, right? And so they asked him to qualify that. What do you mean pay more? In one sentence in the conversation, he says, at least 5% more. Well, what would be the cap on that? At least 15% they should pay. And so if you look at the IRS numbers, the top 1% of the people pay 34% of the taxes.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little higher than that at the moment, but it's around that ballpark. Yeah, it's somewhere like 5% of the population pays over 50% of the taxes. 50% of the bottom 50% of the population economically pay no taxes.
Right.
So, like, if you're out there, you're getting taxes taken out of your check, and you think you're paying taxes because you're not factoring in the fact that you get all of it back with interest at the end of the year. Like, some of us don't get anything back. Right. Like, some of us have to pay more at the end of the year. After you've coughed up your 25 or 30 grand, you got to cough up another 5 or 6 grand because they're like, "Oh, we didn't get enough from you."
That's not even including our accountant.
Yeah, that's not even including the accountant.
Who we both share.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'd like to have his job. His fees keep going up every year. But we love you, Mike, if you watch this. Hey, George, you know what time it is?
What time is that, Jack?
I'm going to give you a little hint. See what that says?
I don't. There's only one thing that could mean. It's rant time.
It's rant time, Georgie. Tear him. Tear him. No filter.
I'm ready to go, Jack. Let's hit it.
Filter, baby. Take it.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
The whole world gone crazy! Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rule?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
So if you haven't seen any of our past episodes, I would highly advise that you go take a look at some to help what I'm saying now make a little bit more sense. The reality of the matter is, we've been placing these stories and piecing things together between critical race theory, organizations that are behind it, organizations that are behind riots, organizations that are behind the destruction in riots, more specifically, giving you the video evidence to depict both and really just sort of laying it all out. This is now where it leads to. Okay. You've got Joe Biden setting the stage. I'm going to show you the clip in just a moment. But the goal here, just to tie it all together, in case you're wondering why, if you're one of those people, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to teach kids division? Why are they trying to teach kids to identify everything by race? Why are they calling everyone a white supremacist and extremist? Why are they doing this? Because this is what you're going to hear over the next year and a half or so, because that's all they have is a year and a half, okay, before they're gone. So that year and a half is going to be spent with you hearing nothing from this administration and its minions that are running around like the Secretary of Defense. You're not going to hear anything except we're here. We want to fight extremism. We want to root out extremism. We want to get rid of white supremacy. They've got to get you to believe this stuff. They have to make you believe it. They have to make you believe that identity by race is everything. These are tactics. This is not education that they're trying to put forth. They're tactics. And now they're going next level. And the stuff's moving fast, folks. So you need to keep paying attention. And we're going to keep putting it out there. But you need to be paying attention to us and to anybody else out there who's trying to get this message done. Okay? Because this is a big deal. So now they want to purge the military of Trump supporters. But they don't just outright come out and say Trump supporters. No. First, they're going to tell you it's the extremists. These extremists are very much a concern. And that's where Joe Biden comes in, because he's just too stupid to be able to handle a delicate message, one that has to be worded very delicately, except for the initial part to set the stage. So here he is.
We just have to open our eyes. We've just witnessed images that we've never imagined, images that now we'll never forget. A violent assault on the U.S. Capitol, assault on our democracy, on our Capitol. A violent attack that threatened lives and took lives. And we know now we must confront and defeat political extremism, white supremacy, and domestic terrorism.
So that seems simple enough, right? Because it doesn't seem that harmless what he's saying. And heck, we all want to get rid of extremism. And, well, let's face it, who likes a white supremacist? So it seems pretty reasonable. Except, who's determining who's a white supremacist or extremist? Well, the person determining that would be Lloyd Austin. Yes, Lloyd Austin. Get used to the name, folks. He just put a 60-day halt on the military so that he can purge Trump supporters from the military. And the way that, and do they come out and say we're purging Trump supporters? No. We need to give Google some good material so that they could post other articles and talk about why this is a good thing, because they're really just going through the military and removing all the white supremacists. However, it becomes clear that what their definition, and they do get to make the definition as to what a white supremacist or an extremist, they're two different things. So if you can't peg them for white supremacist, you go to the more generic term for extremists, which can cover just about anything. But the definition for extremists from these people is anything that disagrees with them. Now, they've already purged a regular Army reservist who's been in station for 4 years in Louisiana, and he's done now. He was given a purge letter from the highest level possible, which I believe was Lloyd's desk. It might have been even over him, but I think it was his desk. But nonetheless, it was an incredibly high level that took out and sent a letter of purge to an Army reservist. Now, this guy's scared shit, as he should be. Okay, he should be. Because the government is officially weaponized right now. And if you're in the military or you're a Christian conservative, you'd better be on guard. You'd better be on guard. Because they're literally scouring everyone in the military's social media posts. And if they find anything that they don't like, which is going to be conservative, you're gone. You're out. Okay, you're out. Under the name of white supremacy, racism, whatever the hell they're using now. So just understand this, because this is real, okay? This is not some World War II story about Stalin or Hitler, or some older story about Mao. No, this is here in the United States, in Louisiana. They already dumped all the appointees that were higher level, but that doesn't overly concern me. Trump put them in, they're taking them out. I get that. But they're going after the local guy. They're going after the regular grunt. They're going after everybody. Now that's crazy. That's just crazy. But there they are. And let's hear the now at his confirmation hearing, let's hear what Lloyd Austin had to say.
I will fight hard to stamp out sexual assault and to rid our ranks of racists and extremists. The job of the Department of Defense is to keep America safe from our enemies. But we can't do that if some of those enemies lie within our own ranks.
So he's saying if some of those enemies lie within our own ranks. I mean, this is... So just follow me here, okay? Because this is not hard to follow. You teach the younger generations, which, by the way, they've already been doing for an awfully long time, okay? So it's not nationalized yet, because the Civic Secures Democracy Act is what's going to hit home with that. But even without it being nationalized, it's still in tons of schools. I just found out yesterday that it's going to be in the high school senior year for my own daughter's high school. She's a sophomore now. So I'm just educating her correctly so when she goes in there, she can smash these fools with reality. But not everybody's going to do that, and not everybody knows that unless they're aware of what this junk is. So he turns around and says that. Now here's something that's really, really interesting. So retired brigadier general, okay? This is a retired brigadier general, Thomas Kolditz, okay? So he goes ahead and he says this. One of my bigger concerns is that there has long been a strong Trump following in the military, Kolditz told Fortune. People in the military have every right to be conservative or extremely conservative. Well, that sounds nice. But Trump supporters in the military who think what happened on January 6th was a good thing need to be managed out of the military as soon as possible. That probably won't happen until the Trump loyalists are out. But that needs to be done. So here's the thing. They ask him after that, so how many people are we talking here? 8,000, well in the thousands, probably in the thousands. Now, fortunately, he's not in charge, but this asshat Bishop Garrison is in charge, and some of the things that he's tasked with doing is redefining extremism, following, getting on people for following, looking into who follows who and who likes what on social media. They've coined a term called patriot extremism. I mean, you can't make this shit up. They're not even trying to hide this. They got a year and a half, folks, a year and a half to get it all done. And the best is patriot extremism. That's my favorite. You'll see it in a minute when I put this video up. But the patriot extremism, they take a bunch of extremist symbols, and then in it, they put like shit that like every military person would have. It's just absolutely, with the picture of the gun, like the Second Amendment advocates, it says, come and take it. That's an extremist view now. Challenging someone to come take your constitutional rights. That's an extremist view now. And if you see a come and take it t-shirt, well, if you own a come and take it t-shirt, don't think about signing up for the military. And if you're already in the military, you better go ahead and scrub your media of anything patriotic, because you do something patriotic around these folks, and you're a racist. And this is why they had to sell that message that everybody's a racist, because of that. Because when they start picking people out at random and calling them racist, everyone needs to agree. Everyone needs to agree. But I know there's still, look, I still got people walking around, the shopping malls full of masks right now. There's whole states fully functioning, 50,000 seat baseball stadiums rocking, no mandate, no rule that you have to wear it here, but everyone's still wearing it. And those are the same people who think everything is a conspiracy theory. And, I trust. It's the National Institute of Health. It's the Center for Disease Control. But this is the Department of Defense. These are government organizations. Well, they would never lie to us. This is what we have walking around, these effing zombies. And I found a video that pretty much articulates everything I just said. And it does it in one video, which was actually kind of cool. After I got done reading everything, I found this video, among others. But this one really hits home and really nails it. But I'll leave the link below so that you can check it out.
Meet Bishop Garrison, the new senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense. His portfolio is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but his purview is much wider. Never heard of him? Me neither. They like it that way. According to an official Defense Department memo signed on April 9th, less than a month ago, by the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin himself, Bishop Garrison is now in charge of Countering Extremism Working Group. The Pentagon's Countering Extremism Working Group, which is a top Defense Department priority, is immediately charged with the following. Get this. Revising the definition of prohibited extremist activities. Creating a reporting process for vets, soldiers who have left the force, to report extremist groups. So now we have a veteran spy network, essentially. And forming yet another commission to study extremist behavior in the military. There's more. This working group will also recommend changing the military justice system in order to address extremism. Good. Woke justice. Enhance the military's insider threats programs to report concerning behaviors. This used to be for, say, foreign spies. I've done the training, but not anymore. We have new insider threats. Screening publicly available information on new recruits with continuous vetting to include algorithms into social media accounts. And finally, they're going to update all training, especially on gray areas such as reading, following, or liking extremist material online. Catch all that? But the big question is, who's deciding what's extreme? Well, Bishop Garrison, of course. The White House just put the equivalent of Ibrahim X. Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, in charge of vetting the entire U.S. military, past, present, and future. Let's check a few of Bishop Garrison's past tweets, and there are a lot of them. In July of 2019, for example, the Pentagon's brand new senior advisor sent these two tweets. Support for him, meaning Trump, a racist, is support for all his beliefs. Also tweeting, he's dragging a lot of bad actors, misogynists, extremists, and other racists out into the light, normalizing their actions. If you support the president, you support that. There is no room for nuance with this. There's no room for nuance. If you support the president, you support extremists and racists. You support all of his beliefs as we define them. The scary part is what he believes about anyone who supports Trump. You are racist. You are an extremist. If you support Trump and supporting Trump makes you a racist and extreme, then in the world of Bishop Garrison, Trump supporters are de facto extremists. No nuance, no question, no quarter. It actually gets worse. In March of this year, a leaked 17-page DARPA presentation, DARPA is the Pentagon's research lab, marked unclassified, outlined extremism and insider threats to the DoD. The document is very startling and would be resource material for Bishop Garrison. It's a type of fertile DoD cultural soil he's standing on right now. Not only does this document assert that extremism is rampant in the military, but it suggests a new form of extremism I'd never heard of in the military, called patriot extremism. The document defines patriot extremism as this ideology holds that the U.S. government has become corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, or is no longer capable of protecting the people against foreign threats. Wait, so thinking the U.S. government is corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, and can't defeat foreign threats makes you an extremist? Those views are mainstream conservative thinking today. May I refer you, DARPA, say, to the Declaration of Independence? The document goes on to name anarchists and racists as well, and uses this photo collage of extremist symbols. Many of these symbols are racist or anarchist. But come and take it? You see that flag in the upper left corner? That's about as common of a military phrase or tattoo or T-shirt as you're ever going to see on Private Murphy. But maybe we're missing it. Maybe it's not just about January 6th, not just about Trump. Maybe despite all the PC and woke curriculum taught to kids these days, the U.S. military today really is full of extremists and racists. Maybe I just missed it. Of course not. On April 20th of this year, less than a month ago, two of America's top generals, the head of U.S. Strategic Command and the head of U.S. Space Command, testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Both were asked if extremism is a problem in their ranks.
I am very confident that the number of extremists in my forces is 0. So if there are any extremists in my organization, 1, they hide it very well, and 2, it's just a matter of time until I get to them.
I would tell you right now that we have done everything that Secretary Austin has asked us to do in terms of training and awareness, but in my organization, I would say that number is 0. Throughout my career, I have not seen that, so I believe it's close to 0 in my organization, if not 0.
0 or close to 0. And if we find him, we'll get him. Not good enough. Who is dispatched to quickly dispel those foolish notions? You guessed it, Bishop Garrison.
We would be remiss if we didn't admit to the fact that there is a problem with extremist behavior within the military. That is to say that one extremist is one too many.
The purge is coming. They see their opening, they have the power, and they have their men in the right places. They say extremism is a huge problem. Their man says Trump supporters are extremists, full stop. So where does that leave Trump supporters, patriots, and conservatives in the military today? Vetted, closeted, or worse, kicked out.
Is there really anything more to say? Rant over.
And like that, he's gone.
So there it is. You see what this guy's trying to do to our military, Jack? It's just wrong. You see how they're setting the stage? It's wrong. It's wrong. And you see how it all ties in. It all ties in.
George, you got to bring it down. I think you need to just purge yourself a little bit. You know, settle down, calm down, relax.
Somebody's got to get it, Jack. Somebody's got to get it.
Have a drink. Take it easy. You're doing what you can do, George. That's all you can do.
The problem is they don't know.
They don't know what?
They don't know Jack.
Regardless of what side of the aisle you fall on, we're all being pushed narratives, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff. Whether the written word or spoken word, information is provided typically in 3 ways. Today I'm going to share with you what those 3 ways are and how you can analyze them to dig down a little bit deeper and determine whether or not the statements are truthful. The first method is a claim of fact. It refers to a condition that's existed in the past, it exists in the present, or it will exist in the future. The building blocks are inferences which are made based on data, documents, scientific observation, and research. When making a statement of fact, you have to state the claim clearly. You need to define the terms that may be controversial or ambiguous so that the person reading or listening knows exactly what you mean. You need to make sure that the evidence fulfills appropriate criteria, such as the data is sufficient, it's accurate, it's recent, and it contains reliable sources. On the receiving end of that, what we need to do is sit down and analyze, did it happen? Does it exist? Is it true? How can its truthfulness be verified? And then determine, is it a fact? The second method is claims of policy. They are specific and measurable actions that need to be done in order to address issues or concerns presented in an argument or proposition. They need to convince the audience that a problem exists. They need to make the proposal clear, establish that there's a need for change, and they also have to consider opposing arguments. When considering opposing arguments, you'll find that they devote the major part of their argument to providing information that their proposal is the answer to the opposition's argument, and that there are distinct benefits in adopting them. They should include solid data, but they're careful not to neglect moral considerations and common sense reasons, which can often enough be more persuasive. So determining whether or not you would stand behind a policy, you have to first explore the statistics. How factual is everything? And start digging a little bit deeper. Look at alternative sources and have other points of view that you can examine. Then, the policy that's presented, how does it impact you, your neighbors, and so forth? Explore alternative policies that address the same issue, but approach it from a different angle, how it's going to be handled. Last but not least are claims of value. They are value judgments that are based upon morals, standards, and the norm. When someone's making a statement of value, they're going to try and make it clear to you that the values or principles that they're defending should be a priority in your life. They'll use testimony of others to prove that knowledgeable or highly regarded people share those values. They're going to suggest that the adherence to those values that they're defending will bring about good results in some specific situation, or bad results if the values are ignored. Considering claims of values can also be tricky, especially when you take into consideration that value judgments are being made based on morals, standards, and norms. It requires you to ask yourself, whose morals, whose standards, whose norms? Do they coincide with your morals? Do they coincide with standards that you've set for yourself? And regardless of a norm, do you operate each and every day within what is considered the norm in that particular instance? Or do you operate outside of it because it's not an acceptable norm to you? The dangers of peer pressure and groupthink are very strong in this category. All right, that wraps this up. So the next time someone makes a claim, take the time to recognize that there are ways to evaluate it, and that that is something that needs to be done, because in the end, they may not know jack.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
All right, George. Well, that puts this episode in a bag. You have any final words for our viewers?
No, I just want to, let everybody know to get ready. We will be posting some things throughout the week, some new material in short bits. We'll be going after it. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell. Like our page on Facebook. They won't allow us to boost any posts at the moment because of some social issues policy they have. So if you do see our material on Facebook, it would be much appreciated if you could share that organically for us while we try to work out or work around this policy of Facebook. But definitely subscribe and like the show if you'd like to see some more updates and when we drop new stuff.
There we go. All right, Georgie. Well, as always, I had a good time talking to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And stay tuned, because we're going to be dropping the new plan on how we're going to take on this beast of a government we have. And it's a legitimate plan that you're probably not fully aware of and don't fully understand how it works. And we're going to be dropping that on you in just a few days.
There we go. All right, Georgie, take it easy.
All right, Jack. Signing out.
Bye for now.
you.